All right, cool. So, again, really informal. Ask questions at any point. This is for you. So, I currently use WordPress for my site, which we'll look at later. And Evan's used WordPress in the past and chose to go for like a custom built, like all HTML, CSS, JavaScript that he's done for his website currently. Just so you know where we're coming from.
It's on PHP.
Oh, PHP. Yeah. So first things first, I guess just by a show of hands, how many people are familiar with registering a domain and getting a hosting plan? So I'd say about half-ish. Okay. So as I mute my cell phone, I've used DreamHost in the past. Evan uses DreamHost now. You want to talk about that?
Well, I'll first talk about the difference between domain registration and hosting for those of you who don't know the difference. So domain is basically something like evancarrigan.com or google.com. It's effectively an address for where your stuff is on the internet. But an address is one thing, but in the real world, you also want to have a place to live. So that's where web hosting is. So that's where actually all the stuff that makes your website is created. Some companies allow you to do both. They'll let you register a name with them, and they'll also give you web hosting service.
Nice.
Sorry. We're going to talk about, does
Arvix,
do both?
Yeah, we'll do both.
So the companies we're going to talk about do both, but you can use two separate companies if you wanted to do it. So that's the difference between those two. Both of these companies offer what they're called shared plans. So you don't actually have a physical server that's just yours. You share it with other people as well. And that's probably okay for anything you guys are going to do. You're not going to be building any massive web applications. And the advantage is it's going to be a lot cheaper to host your website with them.
Yeah, and you can see the stats right here on the left. Like, my site's been inactive for like 4 months, so I have like nothing going on. But even when it was active, like I was barely, those bars were like maybe 10% full. Like I was not getting anything. So the shared thing works. So anyways, I use Arvix for hosting. It's arvixe.com. This is what the control panel looks like. So my website is omidaf.net. And then when I want to log on to the control panel, it's just cpanel.omidaf.net. And this is what you'll be working with if you use Arvix. And basically, they have a lot of things you can do here, but the thing we want to focus in on is, where is it? Software services, Softaculous. Softaculous is like a one-click install, like, awesome thing you can use to add anything you want to your site, basically. So it just automatically installs anything you want to whatever directory you want. So like, for example, if I wanted to do WordPress install, I'd go to Softaculous off the control panel. I'd open the CMS. I don't know what just happened. What just happened? I'd open the CMS area, I guess. And then I'd look for WordPress, and I don't see it. So maybe it's under blogs. Yeah, there you go. Oh my God. I don't know why it's like refreshing and going all white. It's really bad. Anyway, so I click WordPress, and then from here, like it'll tell me the current version, and they keep it up to date. Then I just click install, and it's really that simple. Like it would install it. As you can see, I have 5 installs of WordPress on my domain. So, I mean, it's really simple. Like you'll be able to figure it out from this page. DreamHost is also very similar if you choose to go through DreamHost hosting, dreamhost.com. Mm-hmm. And they have, if you go under goodies and then one-click installs, it'll be a very similar experience. You just click WordPress, which is here, and you'd be able to
custom installation.
Yeah, kind of hard to miss this. So. But yeah, they make these easy on purpose. So it's like, again, if you have issues, you can ask us when time comes. But just want to show you what's there. If other people who are using hosting currently, if like you guys want to recommend yours, like, yeah.
I use Media Temple.
Okay.
Yeah.
MediaTemple.com.
So they're a pretty good service, but they tend to be a little bit more expensive than some of the other ones. So if you feel like you might be getting more hits, that's definitely something worth looking into. They have some good support, and I've worked with them before too. I recommend them as well.
Cool. So yeah, for the purposes of this talk, I guess, the only things you want to be worrying about are like the one-click install or Softaculous or anything like that. That'll install WordPress for you. And also this awesome database administration panel called PHPMyAdmin, which will basically let you do more advanced database management of your WordPress install once you get to that point, if you ever want to get to that point. So for now, only worry about those two things. Like a place where you can install WordPress, such as Softaculous, and then a place where you can edit your database. Those are the two really important things you need to keep in mind. Other than that, like I don't really have anything else to add to those.
You want to talk about this?
Oh, right. Okay.
So, so what I actually have done before, when I installed WordPress myself, is I actually haven't used any of these services, although they are spectacularly easy. You can download the source code for WordPress from WordPress.org, not WordPress.com. That's if you want to host your blog or site with them. WordPress.org gives you everything else to set up WordPress on your own site. So if you just click on the Download WordPress button, you'd get basically a tarball, basically a zip file, effectively, of all the things you need to set up your WordPress site. And then they give instructions on how to install it on their site once you go to the download page. They call it their world famous 5-minute install. They're not joking. It takes 5 minutes to set up once you have a web hosting plan. And they guide you through editing the few files that you actually have to edit, and they're pretty minimal. Basically, you need to give it what database are you pointing it to.
I mean, we can do this right now. I'm happy to do it. Like, I guess just by a show of hands, how many people are thinking they're going to like just download this zip and install it themselves rather than using like a hosting plan?
Just me.
Okay.
Okay. So only a handful, and you find it pretty easy, right?
Well, I had some other problems, so hopefully it was not easy, but installing it was not difficult.
Okay. Well, if you guys want to talk to us, those of you interested in talking to us later, we can. It seems like most people want to go that route.
I've installed a few WordPress sites by downloading the file, and their documentation is extensive.
Yeah.
Really, really awesome.
Oh, so for people who maybe have worked with Drupal before, it's not the case like it is with WordPress. There's actually really good stuff for WordPress, and you won't be like, what the hell is going on, like you are when you're working with Drupal. It'll be a welcome change.
All right. Well, I guess.
So sorry, just real quick.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are interested in looking at the documentation, is called codex.wordpress.org, and that's like all the documentation. It's really, really solid. People can post questions, and it's a very active community. People will answer your questions as well. Although most of the time I've found what I need without having to ask questions. It's like really, really well done.
So if I wanted to install WordPress from scratch, all I did was I downloaded WordPress, which is right here. It's the scroll bar is coming up. This is what I downloaded from the site. I unzipped it. It's currently here. I'm using CyberDuck, which is a open source free FTP client, and do you want to?
Yeah. Do you guys know? So how many of you know what an FTP client does? Okay, fair enough. Just real quick for those who don't, it's basically a program that lets you send files to your server and bring them back to your computer as well. So by default, it usually uses what's called FTP, which is File Transfer Protocol. You actually don't want to use that. There's another one called SFTP. Any free program will let you do this as well. And what that does is it encrypts the connection between you and your server. You'll be sending your username and your password to the server every time you connect to it. So if you send it over via FTP, all that stuff is getting sent out in the clear, and if someone's sneaky enough, they can get in between you and your server and get your username and password. So if you just switch over to SFTP and give the same login information as you were going to otherwise, it'll work just as fine, but now your connection is secure. CyberDuck only works on Macs. If you use Windows or if you're a Linux user as well, FileZilla is another alternative. It's free and it's great. And it'll do all the things we're about to show you.
So anyways, that's all I did. So I just entered my server information, which you get when you create a site and you get hosting. You'll get that information. All I do is enter that. Currently, I'm looking at the root of my website. I have all this stuff, all these folders, blah-de-blah-de-blah. To create a new WordPress install, if I wanted to set it as like my home page, I would put all the things that are in that WordPress folder, so in here, I would put all this stuff in the main root directory of my website. If I wanted to do like omidef.net/talk,
Yeah.
I would put like all that stuff in that folder. Does that make sense? So whatever the root folder is, all these files are going to go into the root folder, and that'll be your directory. Here, I'll just show you. It's easy if I just show you. So what I'm going to do is name this from WordPress to this is a test. And I'm just going to copy this to omidef.net. And it's going to go, maybe take like a minute. But basically, it'll be like good to go and set up, and we'll go back to it and go to omidef.net/this is a test, and you'll be able to see what it looks like. So we went through that in about 9 minutes. We want to focus the bulk of this on like what WordPress looks like and what you can do with it. So that's basically just like a quick whirlwind of a tour through hosting. Does anyone want to like talk about certain things that are bugging them about anything we talked about? Yeah.
I would just emphasize to people maybe to like with their hosting and the domain, like, if you're not comfortable with it, to really do at the same location as opposed to because it can be a pain to switch hostings, releasing the unsecuring the domain and doing the transfer.
Yeah, and does Media Temple allow you to have like hosting as well? Like, can you register a URL there as well as have hosting? Okay.
Yeah.
So all three like things that have come up, all three companies offer that service, and I totally agree. So.
And if you don't feel comfortable, like for me, I actually have my domain separate from them. I don't like having one company control all my stuff, but you don't need to do that. I'm kind of paranoid in that respect. But you can set it up so you can have domains in one place and your actual hosting elsewhere. But
also, since we're all usability professionals in this room or professionals otherwise, please, for the love of God, do not use GoDaddy. It's like the worst experience ever. Like, just do not do it. I can't even believe that they have UX designers.
Do you want to let them know too about secure domains versus private domains versus
you mean the address registration and stuff?
yeah.
So when you're registering a domain, as part of the registration process, you need to give an address that's yours for registering a domain. So some people, and people can find out who owns the domain, so they'll see your name and they'll see your address. That makes some people uncomfortable. So many domain registration services offer you to do what's called a private registration, where effectively a company kind of registers the domain on your behalf. So then when they go there, it'll be like, domainsbyproxy.com is the management of your domain, and their address is somewhere in like Florida, for example. So the benefit is your information is not out in the public. A risk could be that when you're trying to change your address, your domain later, if you want to move it to another company, you need to have that changed back to your actual information, or if that company does screwy things, they kind of own your domain or are responsible for it. So you guys can make a decision whether you feel comfortable giving your address or not. And then every year they're going to contact you saying you're still at that address, and you need to update it if you've moved. Yeah. But I don't want to go too much into that because that can get hairy fast. But
What?
I'd recommend just putting your name and address. And hoping no one.
Yeah, I mean,
People can find you anyway, so.
yeah.
You wanna
Okay,
go?
that's all there is to say, really. So basically, getting into actual WordPress stuff now. If you look at my site right now, this is what you'll see. So I've been lazy. But basically, like, so that's not what I see, though. What I see is, like, the magic happens here at this URL. So wp-admin, after wherever your WordPress install is where all the magic happens. So you want to definitely bookmark that, and because that's where you're going to be developing. So we go there, and it's like, dude, log in. And I'm like, yeah. So that happens. And then this is the main WordPress UI, I guess, the home base. There's a lot of stuff. First, it can be kind of overwhelming, but we're going to try to break down each section for you and what's really important versus what's not. So I guess if you're going to be blogging, and some themes actually use this, posts are going to be what you use.
Yeah. So there's two basic content types in WordPress. You can create your own, but we're not going to talk about that today. There are posts and there are pages. Pages are pages that appear on your website that basically don't update often. You can think of that as pretty static content. For like an about me page, a contact me, you're not going to really be changing that much. You can, it won't prevent you from doing it, but it's more static content. Posts are like things that are dynamic and are changing. So for example, if you wanted to have a section of your website that's doing like a blog type page, I really wish they hadn't called it page and post, but basically you're creating something that's going to appear on a dynamic page. Right. So like posts on a blog versus an about me page. Does that make sense? Is that still confusing?
Yes, and I was just getting to that.
But that was just a very simple way to understand it. But
so the theme I'm currently using is called Tarnished, and in this theme I have to also uploads complete, so we can look at that soon. So basically I can add a new post, and like Evan said, they're typically like changing blog posts, whatever. But in this, I can like add, let's see, I can add different tags or different categories, and there are tags versus categories, and they do different things depending on the theme you're in. So for mine, if I pick a category that's called Other Work, UC San Diego Work, or University of Michigan Work, it'll automatically add that post to my portfolio. But that's just how my theme is. So like in general, you can just take what Evan said, into account and just assume that pages are more static and posts are like stuff you update.
What's the name of the theme you're working with again?
Tarnished. You have to pay for it, but I have my ways, so I didn't. But
we're recording.
But basically.
So you can think of this one. So if you wanted to go to a page, can you show an example of one that might have two posts on the same idea?
So like I'm in the portfolio page currently, or do you want the traditional?
So for example, if you tag or category, what was the thing you were checking? Is that categorizing?
Right.
So he said things are going to appear under 3 different categories. So what you can do is view a page of everything that applies to that particular category. So that's not really a blog per se, but it's posting something that's dynamic. That page is updating based on what you told to appear on that page. Whereas if you just had a home page that said, "Hi, I'm Omid," that wouldn't really be necessarily updating.
So right now we're on the home page of omidf.net/612. This is the home page. I've created a home page. These are all posts. And they're automatically added to the home page, which is what WordPress does by default. WordPress, by default, makes your home page the blog page, and any posts you add will be added there. To go and customize that, there are a variety of things you can do. But so one cool thing about WordPress is if you go to settings under reading, you can set what your front page actually is. So by default, this radio box is checked, but you can change it to like static page. I want it to be any of these, and then that'll like never change basically. But posts and pages, for the most part, posts are blogs, pages are static content that like people will click on, right? Like in the nav bar.
Is that clear?
Is that pretty clear?
Okay.
And I guess like, since I mentioned navbar, if you go to appearance, you can edit like a variety, you can create a variety of menus. So you just click menus, and then usually you'll be working in a theme where it says your theme supports one menu. Select which menu you'd like to use. So it even says header navigation. So basically, this is all like, you can play around with this. It's fairly intuitive. So I can add a new menu with the plus button, call it my top nav bar, herp derp, create menu, and then I can pick, these are the pages I've created. It says pages. These are the pages I've created. I can just be like, okay, I want to show my music and like my resume and my portfolio. Add to menu. Bam, done. You can edit submenus by just dragging. So I can make this a submenu of this and this a submenu of that. And then save, and then I'm good to go. And then all I have to do is, say use this, and then it'll appear right here. So that's navigation in a nutshell. Evan, you want to add anything?
Nope. None on that.
Let's see. So let's backtrack a bit and go to our fresh install. So again, all I did was I renamed the folder from WordPress to this is a test, moved it to my root directory of my website. So we're going to go there now. And this is what you're going to see when you first install WordPress. Whoop, or not. Or not. Where did it go?
It was down.
Is it?
Yep. Keep going. Yeah, at the bottom.
That's why. It wasn't in the right thing. Ugh. It didn't copy to public.
Yeah. Should be good now. .net.
Yeah. Okay. So this is what WordPress first looks like when you start up. Do you want to talk while I go through it?
Sure. So this is a page basically you need to start setting up your WordPress. That's going to guide you through it. So he just had it create a file for him. And now that file that it asked for now exists, and it's going to show you this. And it says, here's what you need to make before you get started. So you need to have a database created because WordPress is going to be storing all the content in a database and then grabbing it every time you build a page. So it needs a database, and then a username and password for a database user, which is going to be a computer anyway, but something to talk to the database. And then some things that the database needs.
Yeah, so I guess one important thing to note about WordPress, and I don't know about Drupal because I don't know Drupal, but WordPress dynamically creates every single thing every single time. Like there's nothing is static on WordPress. Like every time you refresh or go to another page, it's dynamically making everything.
So like you let's say you have like 15 pages
From
on
the
your
database.
website. If you look on the server, you won't have anything there. They don't actually exist. They only exist when someone comes to your website and looks at that page.
Right.
So it's actually the same thing that Drupal does. If you're
Okay.
familiar with that.
So we're going to go to our handy dandy cPanel that we have on our hosted site. And I'm pretty sure, can you create tables from PHP or do you use this one?
You can, but you have to write a SQL.
There's a different, there's a different one. If I can find it.
So on dpost, there's actually a section that says add database. And you give
Yeah.
it a name and a username and password, and it's created.
It doesn't have very
like
good
5
IA.
minutes.
I don't like the IA in this.
I'm not familiar with this. So.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with MySQL databases. Nope. Oh, that could work.
There you go.
Okay.
Huh?
What's your host name again?
I have Arvix.
Arvix?
Arvix, this, right here.
Okay, you're just interested in exactly like
Yeah, so
Yeah,
cPanel
cPanel
is a lot of companies use it as
Okay, so basically, I just clicked MySQL database wizard, making a new database called omidef_test. Next step. Username, omidef_test. Password test. Don't hack my database. Create user. All privileges. All right, cool. So this is all fine and dandy. We're going to go back to our installing thing. It's omidef_test, test. Localhost should work because we're on the server. Table prefix. So basically,
Oh,
you don't have to change this really, but
no.
yeah. Cool. Then it's going to check. Run the install. Do it. Cool. So now, go ahead, Evan.
So the username so there's different not to jump too far ahead, but this is just a good point for some security measures here. So we're going to talk about should we talk about the user permissions later, admin and editor and stuff like
Sure.
that. So when you're working with WordPress, there's all sorts of different levels of how you can add stuff to the website. So there's administrators who can do everything, including like change the theme and do whatever. We'll do that all in a moment. And then there's varying levels of people who can contribute content to the site. So basically, editors can do everything, like edit the content, delete pages, whatever the case may be, but they can't make any big changes to the website itself, like delete a database or change the theme. And then there's author below that, and all things
Subscriber.
that have lower levels.
Yeah.
You know, I can only read, or I can
Subscriber
write a post,
can
but I
only
can't-
comment. Exactly.
Subscribers can only comment on a page, or you can write a post, but you can't publish it without someone higher than you actually pushing it to the website. But one thing I recommend is, by default, the username is admin. Change it to something else. Just if people know you're running a WordPress site, it's a little security by obscurity. It's not that best thing in the world, but if they add something different, then they have one less thing to try to attack their website on. So if you call it like Tom Finholt, apparently. That's one thing left to do. So what I also recommend, though, is for when you're actually changing big things about the site, like the theme or whatever, use this admin account, create a separate user for yourself for actually editing, like copy and putting photos up, and have that be editor. And that's the one you're going to work in most of the time. That protects you from by accidentally deleting something that you didn't want to do on the website when you don't need to. And if for any reason something appears on the website that has your name on it, they may try to like attack the website using your username, but you don't actually have admin privileges. So it's sort of like don't give yourself admin unless you need to. Did that make sense?
Yep. To me, it
What's
did.
an example of something you would change that you would use the admin account for?
So you can change your theme, for example, which we'll get to in a moment, which basically your content stays the same, but you can bounce back and forth between those two. You can edit the theme from within WordPress rather than having to get a text editor. You can change permission. I mean, there's a lot of plumbing that you can basically play with. But if you give yourself a separate one for actually entering in, here's what I did at my internship, here's what I did on my class, you don't need admin access for that. Editor pretty much gives you everything you need except the ability to potentially do something to the site structure.
So that's it. We installed WordPress. Took about 5 minutes with a lot of talking. So basically, you just log in, and then you'll see that panel that we showed you initially. So I'd rather be playing Skyrim. So if you look at the URL right now, it's exactly what I said before. Where the magic happens is your WordPress URL and then /wp-admin. That's where you're going to be doing all your work. You want to go over admin? Okay. Sure.
So we're just going to click on users. Log in as an administrator now. And you can just say add new. And this is where you can add, say a meeting, something like that. Blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to basically set your role to editor, which is basically everything except you can't do things, nasty things to your website. And then add new user. There you go. Okay, so this small out mark that thing. You also notice the appearance of this admin section is going to become a lot simpler. So note you can't create users or delete anything like that. But here you can edit posts, you can edit pages, you can create new pages, you can hide things like that. But you can't do anything big and crazy to your site, like change the theme or like delete something. So I'd recommend, unless you have to be logged in as admin, don't.
And for the record, like I'm not like by any means a WordPress god, but I've been using it for like 5 years, and I have no problem always being logged in as admin because I just don't screw it up.
Well, the problem is there's a lot of WordPress installs,
Yeah.
and the source is open source, which is good, but the thing is people can find nasty things and not tell anyone. So the less opportunity you give them to have a chance to hack your site, the better. But you don't have to do this.
Yep.
This is just a recommendation from my experience.
Totally. And it's a valid one. Just, do what you think is right, basically. So that's basically it as far as installing goes. We already talked about posts and pages.
Plugins.
Yeah. So I I remember when I first installed WordPress and I was looking through plugins, because plugins are where, themes and plugins are basically what make WordPress tick, and that's how you get mass customizability out of the thing, right? You can always just you don't have to write your own CSS. You can just use other themes and just make stuff look differently. You add plugins for functionality, you can have +1 buttons. You don't have to do any JavaScript. It does everything automatically. But that said, you definitely want to limit your use of installing themes and installing plugins, because then you'll just get lost in a sea of crap, and it'll be hard to dig yourself out, because you'll break functionality. So I'll just, for the sake, do you think we should add stuff to this site? Or, oh, by the way, let's see what it looks like. So if I were to go to this site, here's what it would look like. Now that we've made it. Default theme, hello world, first post, right sidebar with the meta. There's an archives, but there's only one thing. Comments. Hi, this is a comment by Mr. WordPress. Thanks, Mr. WordPress. I wrote that like a YouTube comment. So yeah, as you can see, just the default kind of theme, the default layout, you could just upload your own graphic here and add some pages, and it'll be a fine blog site. But I think most people in here want to know how to make a portfolio, right? So I'm going to do a theme first. So let's close this, log back in as the admin. So we're going to go to Appearance, and then we're going to go to Themes, and we're able to install new themes using the Install Themes button. Go away, LastPass. So you can filter based on whatever you're looking for, or you can search, which is just a lot easier, I think. So for the sake of this, we want portfolio, so let's just search portfolio and see what happens. Okay, so there's a couple. Photography, multimedia portfolio theme, excellent theme for blah, 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 websites, okay, cool. Showcases a theme, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. So there's a lot of different types. So there's 6 free ones. If you want paid, I would highly recommend this site, themeforest.net. It's about $30 for a good theme, and the developers are mostly pretty good in giving you support and feedback if you have issues. But I think Evan has a story.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a different thing? That's what the code
It's a different thing.
Yeah, okay, never mind.
But the advantage of maybe paying for one, though, is you're probably more likely to get actually support on the theme.
Right.
Whereas the free, it's yours, if you screw it up, not
And
my
it
problem.
looks really good.
And sometimes the free ones look good, and sometimes they will offer you support, but just, buyer beware, you're getting what you paid for when you don't pay anything.
So this is actually what I used for my old site. I used Portfolio Press. So all I did was click install now. Yes, I'm sure WordPress. And then it's all right, I already downloaded it, already unpacked it, already installed it, instantly. So now all that's left is I can preview or I can activate. Preview will just show it to me. Activate will mean anyone who looks at my site from the outside will be able to see that theme, basically. So let's just do activate. And then I'm going to look at my site. Holy crap, it changed. So yeah, so it totally changed. And it's actually the same colors, which is kind of weird, but that's fine. Okay. God, this is the worst. Fucking LastPass. All right. So if you look closely, you can see that a new thing was added to the left bar over here. We have this portfolio section. So basically, this theme comes with an extra section that allows us to add portfolio items. So not all themes have this, but some of them do. So we'll just take advantage of it. So let's just go here, add new item, test. I have no idea what this is. Portfolio tags, work, dude, yeah. Publish. Okay. Post published. View post. Okay, so I just made a post. Interesting. So what I would do at this point is look at documentation for this specific theme and see how I can add it so that it looks like this. Because if we look at, where'd it go? If we look at the screenshot, the thumbnail of the theme that we installed, it's all cool. You know, see it has these little grid things, right? Oh, look at this, theme options. So under appearance, it also added theme options. So a lot of themes also do this. So it'll either add a button here that says like theme settings, or it'll add it under appearance. So those are the two places you want to look for it. So theme options. So, oh, I need to install this framework plugin. And then I'll be able to upload an image, blah, 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 and I'll be able to do all this. So basically, it's like a cascading chain of events that you just have to follow. It comes with practice, but as long as you know, first, you want to look in the appearance panel for any kind of options. Then you want to look at the sidebar. And you should be fine. There's, like, all themes, in my experience, come with good documentation. Let's see. Make sure we're going through all this. Yeah, so plugins. Let me just show you what I'm using for my site.
So plugins extend functionality to your site. So for those of you who may work with Drupal before, they call them modules. It's a similar idea in that it's adding things to your site without you having to build it from scratch.
So I'm using 6. I was using 7, but I deactivated it until I figure out what I'm doing with my site. Akismet or Akismet, whatever, is like the premier anti-spam, anti-bot plugin. So if you're going to have any plugins, you definitely want that one. So just write it down. You want that one. Google Analytics, if you want to see what's going on with your site, is useful. Listio files, don't worry about that. +1 just adds the Google +1. The ultimate coming soon page is the screen you see when you visit my site and you're not logged in as me. You see this. That's all that is. It allows me to develop while none of you can see what I'm doing. So I think it's useful. So if you want to start with that, I also recommend that. But in general, you'll see that it's not a lot. And you can feel free to search Google. Like Google is your best friend when you're developing WordPress. Like if there's anything you can't figure out, I would recommend Googling first and then WordPress documentation second. Because sometimes Googling is actually easier. So
with that said, the plugins are really, really good, but there's some disadvantages to using them. First, when you go into search for plugins, do you mind just going?
Sure.
I think it is, yeah, just click Add New.
Yeah.
And it lets you search. There's like a million plugins, and you're going to see this, and you're going to jump from away saying, this is cool, I can import photos from my Flickr, I can put my tweets on my page, whatever. And before you know it, you have like 20 plugins stuck on your website. This will happen to you. I've developed a lot of plugin WordPress sites in my day, and I end up doing this. There's 2 disadvantages. One, for every plugin you add, you're going to take a performance hit for your website, because even if there's nothing appearing on that page, it needs to check, is there something that's going on in Flickr on this page? Should I do something? Oh, there isn't, then I'll stop. So your website site is going to be going more slowly every time you install a new one. If you don't think it's going to be useful, maybe you don't need to install it. And you can disable them if you want to have it installed but not actually functioning. The other disadvantage is you're now hoping that someone else is going to continue developing the plugin. So this is actually something I've had experience with in my professional life before coming back here. I integrated a WordPress blog onto my company's website. And we were using a plugin and made it really easy to import photos from our Flickr website and just throw them into our blog posts. It was great. I updated the version of WordPress. The plugin broke. Now every place that I had these like where photos should have been appearing, there's this cryptic short code that the plugin understood and knew to put photos in. And I went to the developer's website, and he had basically abandoned the project. And people were freaking out in the forums saying, I don't know how to fix this. And he set up the license for the plugin such that we weren't allowed to edit the code. I won't tell you how I got around that, but you might be able to imagine. But that was an example of if you don't know what you're doing in terms of editing these things, and you're now relying on someone else to basically make your website function. And it's not uncommon for people, even if they are actively developing their plugin, to be behind the WordPress version. So you may have, especially if you do the one-click installs, it's updating WordPress for you, I think?
No, you can
Okay,
choose.
you can choose. Ideally, though, often you want to update WordPress because there's some security hole they want to plug. But maybe updating that now breaks plugins you have. So you want to be, do I need this? Is something that's really important? What happens if it stops working? Is my site broken? Ask yourself those questions before you start installing them. If you are maybe a little bit familiar with PHP, so for example, like I don't use the Google Analytics plugin because I know how to do an include, and then I just throw the Google Analytics code on every website. So I don't have to worry about WordPress handling that for me because all it's doing is what I would do anyway.
And that's all the plugins do.
Yeah.
So you can really just choose your own path.
Some things are more complicated than that, though.
How do you do that? So where do you put if you wanted to say your own plugin, whatever, where do you put that?
So for me, okay, so when you're, I guess we can talk about templates now.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's something we should talk about a little bit later. That's if you want to edit your own.
Real quick.
So when you're doing pages or posts, it knows how to build that page based on a template file. So those familiar
Appearance editor.
Yeah, you can find it under Appearance Editor. So you would edit the template and throw an include in there. So it wouldn't actually be a plugin, you would just be editing what's appearing on the page. And we can go into templating if you guys are interested later. I don't think we have enough time to cover that now, but there's some advanced things you can do with that.
Also, how do you tell what code is going to be not editable? Because you mentioned that there's code out there, and I tried to as well, change stuff, and it wouldn't let me. I didn't have permissions to change plugin.
Okay, so literally I could edit the code. I mean, there's nothing that actually stopped me from doing it. It's just that I'm familiar with the software license. Yeah. And it says you basically can't edit it. So, legally, you're not allowed to do it based on the contract with the software. Whether you want to do with that or not is a different thing.
Okay.
And you probably could do it, and probably no one would ever know. But you would be violating the license of the software, so you'd have to read that stuff.
So how did you see the software?
So there's a whole plugins directory where all this stuff lives. I mean, all the code is there. I mean,
plugins editor.
Or you can edit it all through the website. You don't need to touch the FTP server. That's what I am more comfortable with. But then I can edit. You can view the source of all those plugins there.
Yeah, ultimate coming soon page.
If you're familiar with Apache, you can also do it there without having to use a WordPress plugin.
You can even easier than that is you can just open up your favorite text editor.
Oh yeah.
Make an index.html file and throw the index.html file into the WordPress main root, and that'll override the index.php file that WordPress generates.
So they'll see that instead.
And when you're done developing, just...
And if you also want to get super advanced, you can actually install WordPress on your own computer. You don't actually have to have a server first. And you can actually have a version on the website that's actually looking one way, and you decide, I want to change it a lot. You can actually develop that on your local machine and then push it back to the server when you're ready to update. But we're not going to cover how to do that here.
Just curious, how much of it do you guys use, themes that you get offline versus just creating something from scratch?
So most of the things I've built in my life, I've done from scratch. I don't like not knowing what's going on when other people build things, and I like doing that from scratch. I used to enjoy it more. Sort of doing web design myself and hand coding things. So if something breaks, I know it's my fault and I know where to find it. Whereas in a theme, if they did a good job documenting it, you're going to be fine. If they didn't, you might be shit out of luck.
Do you have a theme that you start with, for the resets, the ones you recommend?
I kind of built my own. But I can send out a link later. I don't know how much has changed in WordPress 3, which is the newest version. I haven't done much development since it came over, which actually made the installation way easier than I remember it being. You used to have to actually edit files, and you didn't here. But I can send that link about how to basically build your own theme from scratch at a very basic level, and then you'll probably be having to hit the codex hard to really get it to do what you want it to do. It's not difficult, but it's going to be difficult learning.
Was it so that you don't use WordPress anymore?
Why is it so?
Was it so that you don't use WordPress anymore?
I don't use it anymore. I didn't use it for my portfolio website because I only had 10 to 12 pages, and I thought working with a content management system for only 10 to 12 pages was just more, it was too heavyweight for what I needed, and I feel very comfortable doing this from scratch. If I didn't, I would stick with WordPress.
So to answer your first question, I'm like 80-20 on like theme versus personal hacking. And I actually really like hacking, and like I'm really lazy by nature. Like all I want to do is play Skyrim. So like I basically just like it when people do the work for me, and then I can just edit it. And like I don't have trouble. I don't even use documentation for the most part. Like I have a CS minor, so I kind of just know where to go. Like if that makes like I'm not trying to sound arrogant. Like I just go in the editor and I just know what to change. Like it's really not a challenge for me. Sometimes I get lost, but I just do it by trial and error, and it takes like maybe 20 minutes at most.
So that's what I was curious about. Like,
Yeah.
I've messed around with like customizing. I'm just curious if people do it a lot. If you do it more
Right.
on one end or more on the other.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're the reason why we decided to have this panel is because like we're kind of opposite ends on the website development spectrum. So Evan likes having full control and customizing to his heart's desire. I like having people do work for me. So,
Is there a question? Did you have a question right there?
any other questions? Yeah. So I mean, you can edit everything from the CSS to the individual PHP files. Just be cautious that if you do this in WordPress, there's no undo. So that's why you want to use like CyberDuck or FileZilla or Transmit or whatever to do it like in your browse or whatever.
In your text
Not
editor,
browser. In your text
upload
editor.
it. Oh shit, it broke.
Yeah.
Undo, upload again.
Right.
You're okay.
Right. So that's what I would recommend too.
Yeah. I don't like editing a system.
You'll
within
break
the
it.
System.
Yeah, like you will break it probably. What else? What else? Oh, you or Miko said themes you would recommend, right? To first starting out.
I was talking about a complete reset theme. So like one that completely strips out the CSS and link template pages.
I don't know if there is one. Is there?
Uh,
I don't know of any.
no, so like basically what I do is I build the theme, the template pages basically from scratch, which is what's handling all that.
Which is this,
CSS is removed as a separate file. So you could swap in your own CSS, but I just build the page first, not using any styling yet. So it actually is pulling out the content, and then I style it after the fact.
So if you're really into coding and you really want customization, like a lot of customization, check out this website.
Mm-hmm. The Codex website that I brought up.
Right.
Weaver, W-E-A-V-E-R, is a really awesome theme.
Okay.
It's really bulky, but in terms of going and being new to WordPress, it offers sort of fields for changing things. Like the bottom border to be this many pixels for a good view. All the elements of the WordPress structure. So it's a really great way to learn how WordPress is built.
Cool. Yeah, I've never heard of it either. Nice. So check out wpweaver.info. Is that the right website? Cool. Thanks, JP. I mean, we have like 5 minutes left, but
I guess the one last thing, we're not going to go into how to actually do it. This is probably something you want to Google on your own. But whenever you're updating a version on WordPress, or maybe even when you're updating a version of the plugins, because people are constantly developing, a good practice is to back up your database every single time. Because this is your portfolio website. So every time I've ever updated, I've never had a problem where it like deleted my site or really screwed up anything. But the last thing you want to have happen is it bork your database and then your site's broken and you don't have an easy way to get your content back out. So you can Google how to do like a MySQL dump, or maybe even better, talk to your host and see, do you guys back up my databases for me? If so, how often? Great. How can I get those if I need them? And maybe you want to talk to them when you're signing up for a hosting service, because they may be able to do the work for you and be offered to restore it for you. But that's always a good practice when you make any big change to anything on the computer. Back up what you have, so in case you screw it up, you have a version that still works.
And then one last thing that I found really useful in my Googling, and I even +1'd it so you can find it when you search. Basically, I don't want people to comment on my site. I don't have a blog. I have it's like a personal website. So there's a simple SQL command that you can do to like completely remove commenting from your website.
Can you just turn that off in your admin panel?
No.
Did they change that?
Yes.
Oh, you used to be able to turn it. Okay.
So basically, you just want to go into so PHP My Admin, I can show you. It's like super useful. It removes like everything that has to do with commenting on your site. So like you'll still have your normal users. It's just like they can't do anything that has to do with comments, basically. So we can actually do it on the test site. So let me open that.
So this is an example if you're about to like change the database manually, back up your database first, but this one we don't care if it gets destroyed.
Right. So my database, so I'm in PHP, this is what PHP My Admin looks like if you haven't taken 572 or you're not familiar with this. The database we made was this one. So I click it. This one, so this is what you want to paste into the SQL query box. You're updating the posts table, so in this it's called WP posts. So I'm going to do a query, and I'm going to copy paste this. So make sure it's the right database. So omidf test, update WP posts. It's just going to close everything that's open. Basically, that's all that. So at the end of developing your site, when everything's built and good to go, you're going to want to run this. And it'll completely remove all comments, if you don't want comments. So this is what it looks like currently. We see that there's 2 comments here. Cool. I can click it. It'll show me 2 responses to hello world. It's below the blog post. Cool. But I hate you.
So is that different than under settings and discussions and the disable comments?
So what that'll do, it'll put a little filler text, static text, affordance text, whatever you want to call it, under here. So it'll put it over here. It'll say, comments have been disabled for this post. Okay? So what I did is I completely removed anything, right? Look, bam, gone, clean. So nice. So that took me like probably a half hour or an hour to Google. But once I did, man, was I happy. So just a random closing tip.
Pretty much all we have is questions from
Yeah.
getting kicked out.
Because I know the PHP My Admin stuff that's on your hosting site.
Yes.
And you wouldn't mind talking again about just a recap of which hosting sites people are using?
So we talked about the 2 that we've used, and then someone else also brought up Media Temple, which is also great, but it's a little bit more expensive. I use DreamHost, and Mead uses why can't I pronounce it?
Arvix.
Arvix. I want to say archives, but it's not. There's other ones out there too, but what we were suggesting is look for a shared hosting plan. They're less expensive. You basically share an actual physical server with other people's websites. The disadvantage is technically you guys share all the same resources, so if someone else's website suddenly gets really popular and they're on the same server as yours, your website goes down. But if people realize that their website's going to be big, they're not going to use the shared server, and they'll move pretty quickly. But that is a disadvantage. But it's way cheaper, and I've never had my site down because of other people. Usually because I screwed up something.
Really quick, so I thought you didn't really have any plugins for like managing the content of like a portfolio type system.
There are.
So is there really no good plugins to do that? I know that Evans mentioned something called like Portfolio or something.
No, so basically, it's really hit or miss with the portfolio plugin. So what I mentioned was what you're typically going to do is download themes, and the themes will have portfolio elements that you'll have to read up on how to use and whatever. But there's also portfolio plugins, and those are really hit or miss. Like they'll just basically insert portfolio functionality into your current theme. So as just by me telling you that, you can tell it's going to get wonky. It'll require more editing to get it perfect. I personally don't recommend it. I personally just recommend Google stuff like free portfolio template WordPress 2011 or something like that, right? And like you'll be able to get results.
Definitely do it at the theme level.
Yeah, theme level is what I would recommend for sure. But like if I go to, is there a class right now or?
688, yeah.
688, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, so plugins, add new, portfolio, you'll get a fuck ton of hits. And like I haven't had good success with like any of them. 113 items. So go ahead, like Evan was saying, use your own judgment. May or may not be updated. So hey guys, we'll upload this. Hopefully it'll be useful. Evan and I think I speak on Evan's behalf when I say this. As long as we're not busy with school and work, we're more than happy to answer any like WordPress questions. So just email us. You can even email SOCHI-officers. Molly and Mary will be able to chime in as well. So
we charge $150 an hour, so
yeah,
it's really reasonable.
No big deal. So just PayPal. Now, how big do you think this file is?
10 gigs.
11 gigs. 7.75.
Nailed it.
Bye, Internet.